Now, I know what you might be thinking. You probably saw the trailer and you thought, oh, well, this doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on. What's this even about? This seems kind of vague. No one's talking about this movie. Let's go watch Flight Risk instead, you know what I'm saying? Don't sleep on this one. Don't do it.
And you wonder what it would be like if you were there too.
And today we have presence. Talk to me, it was very thematically relevant, spirits, the oogies and the boogies and all that. Presence kind of came out of right field. I was worried initially because, I don't know if you already know how this goes or not, but when it comes to early year horror films that are, January, February time slots, kind of hit or miss, But the trailer dropped for this first on IGN, and I was immediately intrigued. I like a trailer that's, nice and vague. It kind of gives an idea of something going on, shows you a little taste of the direction, the cinematography. Maybe it doesn't even give too much in the way of story or even much in the way of characters talking in this trailer, but just blurbs from critics about turning a new twist on the genre, like the haunted house and a spirit in said house, and kind of what that might entail. And a little bit in the way of noticeable star power. I was hooked. I was intrigued, and you bet your bottom dollar, especially because it's horror, I was in. I was gonna watch it. Apologies, by the way. I'm trying to figure out the most conducive setup to record. I'm gonna have to do something about this. It's just an enormous low-hanging light fixture. I'm gonna have to prop up somewhere if I'm gonna film this way. And then the way I have the shelf now, it's a little bit lower, so struggle bus for real, but we're gonna get through it. I'm eventually gonna find a format for reviews going forward. The director of Presence is a Steven Soderbergh, and you might hear that and think, if you've been watching movies even half as long as I have, you might be thinking, oh, that name sounds familiar. He's been in the business since '83, and literally this guy is the king of movies that he directed that are on my list of movies that I just have wanted to see. Kimmy was a solid little watch. Even Unsane, I didn't love Unsane, but that entire film was shot on an iPhone. Other films that I've wanted to see that look insanely interesting, and I keep hearing good things about, he did No Sudden Move, which is a who's who of all the people. He did Logan Lucky, which I heard, people slept on Logan Lucky apparently, including me. We got the Magic Mike films, funny enough, so the man's got range. We've got Traffic, all the Oceans movies, very prolific filmography, and this is his newest directorial outing. You could argue that the main star power of this is Lucy Liu. And if you're wondering, Lucy Liu, I think her most notable roles would definitely be that of O-Ren Ishii in Kill Bill, as well as in Charlie's Angels. And then, this would be a deep cut for any musical fans, but Kitty Baxter in Chicago. Of course, the cast is pretty small for this film. I'm not going to go over every single cast member, but want to give a shout out. I didn't look into the rest of his filmography. I don't think I've ever seen him before. Chris Sullivan over here, just want to say, might be one, probably top slot right now for this year for world's best dad in terms of movies or cinema. Great guy. I just want to give him a hug. I just want to know it's gonna be all okay. I don't know if you call this a breakout role for her, but Kalina Liang. Aside from one of her other starring roles being in the show on Apple TV called Foundation, which my mother will not stop talking about, between that and this, she has very few acting credits. She's only been in the game since 2022, but I would love to see her more. If you don't already know, Presence, it's literally very simple. It's just a haunted house movie. Like Paranormal Activity, but not as schlocky. But the twist on this genre, or I guess you call maybe a subgenre then. I know films have kind of done versions of this before. I think Ghost Story did in a more dramatic sense of it. It's a haunted house movie, all completely from the perspective, literally the POV, point of view, of the entity, the ghost, the spirit. So from the time this movie starts until the very last scene in this film, we never cut away from the ghost's POV. and then that's the movie. I don't even know if you want to call it haunted. There's just a lingering spirit in this home. We don't know why. The spirit doesn't even seem to know why. And this family moves into the house, and then, you know, the drama and the narrative unfolds from there. And then you have your movie. I was very curious to see how that would be executed. And boy howdy, I think that they did a very good job with what limited resources they were using here. I love the concept of the ghost POV. It's not like you're watching hardcore Henry and getting motion sick as you're running down the street and running and gunning and jumping out of airplanes and whatnot. They're all very stabilized, smooth floating shots that go, you know, from one room to another, follow one character, track somebody else. There might be light spoiler talk, but I'm not going to reveal any crucial narrative elements. But at one point, as you would in a movie like this, a medium is brought in to kind of ascertain what's going on. The spirit is kind of just free-flowing through time. Like, it doesn't really work as like past, present, future. It just kind of exists and will just kind of pop in and out of existence, which explains why there'd be cuts and jumps in time basically in this film. All again from the spirit's POV as we kind of float around, and then we miss out on some narrative details, but of course for the sake of a good narrative flow in the story, we follow main beats of certain characters whenever it's relevant, and so I guess whatever piques the spirit's interest, right? Like a direction standpoint and cinematography, I don't know if you know this about old MovieMan here, I love long takes. I love one-shot long takes. It's, for me, as long as they're very substantive, they're a mark of great skill and excellence in filmmaking, because, you know, it's really easy to get a lot of quick shots with quick bits of dialogue or action and then cut and then edit it all together in the bay and then put out, you know, oh, here's one scene with like 25 or whatever cuts. A lot of this movie is literally like spirit, you know, like so the camera pops on as the spirit, you float around, you follow a character here or there. Admittedly, some might be a bit shorter than others, but there are some scenes in this movie that are like several minutes long. It's almost like watching a stage play. Talented actors, you know, between memorizing scripts and the blocking involved, the camera direction, especially if it involves going throughout the whole house, interacting with multiple characters. This entire movie is one after another, a series of long, like, one takes, and that tickles my like cinephile brain in the back. It's a simple concept, arguably well executed. I think they executed the concept really well. I thought the narrative worked. I like the characters and the family. Kind of goes into my next point here, which is that it helps in a movie like this, especially since you just have this family of four interacting with the spirit. It's crazy how even though the spirit literally can't directly communicate and can't, you know, obviously speak, or, you know, it can't really interact too terribly much with a lot of, you know, the people in the home or the environment, there's still kind of character to the spirit, just based on what it observes, what it looks at, what it chooses to linger on, who it chooses to follow. You're gonna like some characters in this family, and you're gonna be like, oh, don't be a dick. You're gonna have a lot of feelings about this family. But end of the day, even though there were some I liked and some I didn't like, I cared about them. It's a relatively short film, I think only clocking in at just a little over an hour and a half, but I kind of developed a bond for this family, and similar to the spirit, maybe I gravitated more towards one family member or two over the others. They were all interesting, well-written, well-portrayed characters. Speaking of which, painfully realistic portrayal of a dysfunctional family, I'll put it at that. There is definitely family drama, and a lesser film would it might seem hokey or forced or schlocky. A lot of you, like me, if you watch the film, you'll think, okay, well, so-and-so might be overreacting, or so-and-so could be a bit more understanding, but given, you know, the stress of life events in this family's, you know, collective lives, and, you know, the whole mother, father, son, daughter, and just already, even in the best of circumstances, that relationship can be quite volatile. Well-written, well-acted portrayal of a dysfunctional family. As far as I can tell, the film is nearly entirely all practical effects, and I think there's some minor digital trickery or enhancements towards the end of the film, or like throughout there might be a couple spots. I would say 95% of this film is all practically done And yeah, it's almost kind of realistic in that sense. We're not seeing, we're not watching Poltergeist and there's demons and ghosties and skeletons in the pool and lightning shooting out of, people's fingertips. It's just kind of minimal interaction by the spirit, but just enough when it matters and just enough to constitute what someone might say is a haunting. Kind of a free floating, free roaming spirit who's just inhabiting this house for a, as of yet, unknown reason. $2 million budget. You watch some of the clickbaity articles online, they say,
oh, this film barely made just $4 million in its first 3 days.
And we're all like, yeah, it didn't make hundreds of millions of dollars, but it literally already doubled its budget in the time that it's been out, and it's been out for 3 days. So I can only hope that as word spreads, more people will see this. If some of you people want to watch Skinamarink out there, and I think that's a great movie, please go watch Presence and be in the presence of what I would say is a better film. Any chance I get to drag Skinamarink through the mud, I will. Look, if you like it, fine, but I'm sorry, I think you're wrong. I think the only notes that I had for this film, honestly, were I actually would have liked it if it was longer. Sometimes films, they run too long or aren't worthy of the length or feel like they're running pretty long. But this film, I was along for the ride, and I never felt the length, but I definitely felt as if, I would have watched, instead of an hour and a half, I would have watched this if it was an hour 45 or maybe 2 hours. And that kind of goes into my last, I don't want to say con, but my other note. There is good character development in this film, don't get me wrong. I just would have liked more. Maybe it's the point of the film, but I would have liked more closure. Maybe just more scenes with our characters interacting. I suppose for the sake of the story, all that could have been told in this film was told. Elements of the narrative make it so that you're not supposed to be able to see every little bit. As much as I like this film, and I really did like this film, if I had to make some notes, I'd say that I would have liked it if it was longer and there was even more character development involved. I'm going to call this one a 2025 release. You go online to Google, it says technically it showed up in theaters first last year, but this one didn't premiere in a national US cinema, for me anyway, until we're in early 2025. And as far as early horror releases go, they normally don't. They normally crash, burn, and are disappointing. We'll get to Wolfman eventually, I promise. This was actually a very pleasant surprise. Right now it's underrated. I think that at the very least it's worth a watch. I don't know if it completely twists the sub-genre on its head or reinvents anything, but I give it a high 4 out of 5, honestly. I give it a high 4 out of 5. It does very, very little wrong. It's not a perfect film, but it's damn near close. I aside from those two notes, I really don't have much else in the way of criticism. I think it's going to come down to personal preference. If you want a more nuanced take on it that has more of a focus on the characters and the drama and the story, then Presence is going to be right up your alley, and it's going to be honestly a solid way to start the year. That's all I got to say about the Presence. Let me know what you think about this. I'm working on the setup. I'm trying to figure out if I should be bring it down and sit down with the movies, keep standing, get this light out of the way, try to reorient this thing, change the background. But yeah, let me know what you think. I'll see you guys in the next episode of whatever movie I review. And goodbye, travelers.